In this video, I'm going to go over our notes about percent composition and teach you how to do percent composition problems. Well, what is percent composition? Well, it's the relative amount of each element in a compound by mass. So for example, water is 88.8% oxygen and 11.2% hydrogen by mass. So if you had 100 grams of water, 88.8 grams would be oxygen and 11.2 grams would be hydrogen. So that's what we mean by percent composition. There are a couple different things you can do with percent composition. If you know the formula of a compound, you can calculate its percent composition. For unknown compounds, you can use data analysis that a laboratory would do and use that information to then figure out the formula of the unknown. So it's kind of like working backwards. But the first thing we're going to do is talk about calculating percent composition. So in percent composition, basically it's just going to be the mass of the element in the compound divided by the mass of the compound times 100, and that gives you the percent for each of the elements. So here's a sample problem. What is the percent composition by mass of copper 1 nitrate? So you just take the mass of each element divided by the mass of the compound times 100. Well, when it says mass of the compound, well, that just means the molar mass. So you just find the molar mass of copper and nitrogen and then 3 oxygens and add it all together and you'll get 125.56 grams per mole. That's the molar mass of copper 1 nitrate. So then to find the percent composition, you take the individual mass total for each element divided by the molar mass of the whole compound times 100, and you'll get a percent. So for this problem, you would get 50.61% copper, 11.16% nitrogen, and 38.23% oxygen. And you should, if you add all those percents together, always get 100%. So let's do another one. So you can pause the video and try this on your own and then come back and check to see if you got the right answer. So what is the percent composition by mass of copper 2 nitrate? Okay, so what we're going to do is look at each individual element in the compound. So copper has a molar mass of 63.55 grams per mole. There's only one of them, so that's its total contribution to the mass of the compound. Nitrogen has a molar mass of 14.01 grams per mole, but we have 2 nitrogens for a total of 28.02 grams per mole. And for oxygen, its molar mass is 16.00, but we have 6 oxygen atoms for a total of 96.00 grams per mole. So then we're going to add all these together. This is just finding our molar mass, and we get 187.57 grams per mole. Let's just find the molar mass. So then we're going to take each individual mass divided by the molar mass. So we'll do that for each one. And then of course multiply each one by 100 so that we can get a percent. And we'll find that we get 33.88% copper, 14.94% nitrogen, and 51.18% oxygen. Again, if you add all of those up to double check that you did it right, you would get 100%. So that's how you do percent composition problems, where they just give you the formula and ask for the percent composition. Now, it could be worded a little differently. Like, for example, the question could have read, what is the percent composition by mass of copper in copper 2 nitrate? And when it's worded like that, then they're just asking for this answer, not for all of them, which makes your work a little bit easier. Now, there are some extensions to this kind of problem, and we'll look at an example of that. So they could ask something like, what is the mass of copper in 50 grams of copper 2 nitrate? So what we need to know first is what is the percent of copper in the compound. and then you multiply the percent by the mass. So for example, since copper is 33.88% of copper 2 nitrate, now we only know that because we just found that answer up here in this one. If we hadn't done that, then we would have to do a percent composition problem like this to find out that number. But since copper is that percent of copper 2 nitrate, then 50 grams of the compound will contain, well, we just multiply the percent times the mass of the whole compound. Now remember, when you multiply a percent, you got to move the decimal point over 2. And we get 16.9 grams of copper. So if you have 50 grams of copper 2 nitrate, 16.9 grams of that compound is copper. So let's do one more like this. You guys can pause the video and practice it and try it out on your own, and then come back and see if you get the right answer. Okay, so this one asks, what is the mass of hydrogen in 255 grams of water? Well, we're going to have to know the percent of hydrogen, first of all. So hydrogen we have is 1.01 grams per mole. We have 2 of them for a total of 2.02. Oxygen is 16 grams per mole. So we are going to add those two together, and we get 18.02 grams per mole. That's a molar mass of water. All we care about is the percent of hydrogen. So we'll take the hydrogen component divided by 18.02 times 100, and we find that hydrogen is that water is 11.21% hydrogen. So the question is, then what is the mass of hydrogen in this much water? So we're simply going to take the mass of the water, so that's the mass of the whole compound, times the percent that's hydrogen, and remember when we multiply by a percent we have to move the decimal point over 2, and we find that we get 28.6 grams of hydrogen. So that tells us that if we have 255 grams of water, then we have 28.6 grams of hydrogen. And so that's how you would do percent composition problems.